The alien queen's child hugged me, shouting Dad. Everyone in the palace was stunned. Captain Elian Voss stepped out of the shuttle onto the smooth, glowing surface of the palace landing platform. The air was crisp, scented with faint notes of something like metal and flowers at the same time. He looked up and his eyes widened. The palace was enormous, towers of crystal that shimmered with soft colors, changing from blue to green to gold as the sunlight passed through them. Its walls seemed alive, like the palace itself was breathing. Elian adjusted the straps of his uniform and took a deep breath. He was the first human envoy to the Zethurian Empire in over a century. His mission was simple in theory: negotiate peace. In practice, it felt like walking into the lair of a dragon. Zethurians were tall and graceful, with skin that glowed faintly in patterns unique to each individual. Their eyes reflected light like precious gems, and their movements were almost like dancing. To an outsider, they looked magical. A group of Zethurian guards approached, their bodies shimmering in shades of violet and silver. They spoke in a language Elian could not understand. His translator activated with a soft hum. "Welcome, human captain," it said in a calm, female voice. "I am Sareth, queen of the Zethurians. You are honored to enter our palace." Elian bowed slightly. "Thank you, your majesty. I am here to discuss peace and mutual cooperation." Sareth's many eyes studied him. "Your species has never truly understood ours." "Let us hope you are different," Elian swallowed. He had faced dangerous situations before: space pirates, rogue asteroids, even diplomatic tensions with hostile planets, but nothing could have prepared him for what was about to happen. He followed the guards into the central hall. The room was larger than any building he had ever seen. The floor was smooth crystal, reflecting his image. The walls were transparent in some places, showing the palace gardens outside, where strange plants with glowing leaves and flowers swayed as if alive. Light danced across the ceiling in soft waves like a moving aurora. Courtiers walked around him, tall and elegant, each glowing in different shades. They whispered among themselves, their voices like music. Elian felt every eye on him. He straightened his back and tried to ignore the strange mixture of fear and awe rising in his chest. Then, from the far side of the hall, a small figure ran toward him. At first, he thought it was one of the young Zethurians. Children, he had been told, had bright, playful patterns that made them easy to spot. But this child moved differently. There was something familiar in the way she ran, the way her arms reached out. Elian's heart skipped a beat. The child shouted in a voice that was almost human. "Dad!" The word echoed in the grand hall. Everyone froze, courtiers stopped moving, guards straightened. Even Queen Sareth, who had been hovering silently above, seemed startled. Elian felt his legs go weak. The small, glowing child leapt into his arms, hugging him tightly. Her skin shimmered softly with warm colors, pinks and golds like the sunrise. Her hair was a silvery shade, and her eyes were deep and full of trust. She held him as if she had been waiting for this moment her entire life. Who is this?" Elian stammered, trying to keep his voice calm while his mind raced. The courtiers whispered among themselves, some covering their mouths in shock. Queen Sareth's many limbs moved gracefully as she floated closer, her expression unreadable. "This is Lyra," she said finally, her voice steady but filled with tension. "She has been waiting for you." Elian's mind reeled, waiting for him. How could this child, half Zethurian perhaps, know him, and why call him Dad? He had no family here, no knowledge of any Zethurian experiments. Lyra's small hands rested on his chest, and she looked up at him with glowing eyes full of trust. "I knew you would come," she said softly in a mix of human and Zethurian words. The hall was silent. No one moved. It was as if time itself had stopped. Elian realized that every Zethurian present was witnessing something impossible, a human and a Zethurian child sharing a bond that should not exist. "Your Majesty," Elian said carefully, addressing Queen Sareth, I do not understand. Who is this child?" Sareth's eyes softened slightly. "She is part of a program we hoped you would never discover, but perhaps it was meant to be. Lyra is unique. She is a bridge." "A bridge?" Elian asked. He still held Lyra carefully, feeling the warmth of her tiny body against his uniform. "Yes," Sareth said. "She carries the blood of both our species. She was created to unite us when all else fails, and apparently she recognizes you as her father." Elian's mind spun. This was impossible, or at least it seemed impossible. And yet the feeling in her hug, the trust in her voice, it was real. Lyra looked up at him again, her glowing eyes wide. "I've missed you," she whispered. Something inside Elian shifted. The formal, careful part of him, trained for diplomacy and command, was pushed aside by a raw, human feeling: love, protection, responsibility. He hugged her back tightly, careful not to crush her small frame, and whispered, I'm here, Lyra. I'll never leave you." The courtiers murmured among themselves. Some looked fearful, some amazed. Queen Sareth hovered closer, her many limbs folding carefully. "You see," she said to the gathered court, "sometimes the future of our empire is not built by treaties or weapons, but by hearts that choose to trust." Elian gently set Lyra down, holding her hands. She bounced lightly on her feet, still glowing, still smiling. "Can we stay together?" she asked. Elian smiled, though his mind raced with questions. "We will try," he said softly. He did not know how. He did not know what this would mean for diplomacy, for peace, for his career, or for the Zethurian Empire itself. But one thing was clear. The moment he held Lyra in his arms, he knew that everything had changed. The palace, with all its glowing beauty and elegant courtiers, suddenly seemed less intimidating. There was hope now, a small child's hope, and the impossible had already begun. Whispers filled the hall. The word "Dad" had echoed through the Zethurian palace, and no one present would forget it. Elian looked at Lyra, then at Queen Sareth, and realized that his mission had become something far greater than negotiation. It was about protecting a child, bridging two civilizations, and discovering the power of humanity in a galaxy that had never truly seen it. And somewhere deep in the palace, beyond the sparkling walls and the glittering lights, Elian felt a stirring of destiny, one that he would follow no matter where it led. The palace was quiet after the shocking moment. The courtiers whispered in small clusters, their glowing bodies flickering with emotion. Some looked amazed, others confused, and a few were clearly suspicious. Captain Elian Voss held Lyra's small hand tightly as he tried to make sense of everything. He had come to the Zethurian Empire expecting negotiations, not a child calling him Dad. Queen Sareth hovered closer, her multiple arms folding gracefully around her. Her glowing eyes studied Elian with a calm, serious intensity. "Captain," she said, her voice soft but firm, "you must understand something. Lyra is not just any child, she carries the blood of both our species." Elian's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" he asked. His voice was careful, polite, but full of curiosity. How can she carry human blood? I never knew of any experiment." Sareth's limbs moved slightly, a gesture that seemed almost like hesitation. "It was a secret program hidden from most of the Empire. Zethurian scientists combined human DNA with our own to create a hybrid, someone who could understand both species and serve as a bridge for peace. Lyra was born from that program." Elian's heart skipped a beat. His mind raced. So, she was engineered. She was made to connect humans and Zethurians. "Yes," the Queen replied. "But it is more than science. She has chosen you, Captain. She recognizes you as her father because she sees you as someone she can trust and love. The program gave her life, but her heart chose you." Lyra squeezed his hand and looked up at him with wide, glowing eyes. "I knew you would come," she said softly. Her voice was small, innocent, but full of certainty. "I've been waiting for you." Elian knelt down to her level. "Waiting for me? How? Why?" he asked. He tried to stay calm, but inside he felt a mix of awe, fear, and joy. I didn't know you existed." Lyra smiled faintly, a soft light glowing around her. "I was hidden. The others, the ones who made me, they said I should wait for you. They said you would come." Elian looked at Queen Sareth. "And no one told me?" Sareth's eyes softened. "We hoped this day would come naturally. We did not know how you would react, and we did not want to force anything. But she has chosen. You are her father in heart, if not in blood." Elian's mind was spinning. Everything he had planned for this mission suddenly felt small. Negotiations, treaties, diplomatic talks, all of it seemed insignificant compared to the small, glowing child holding his hand. He felt a surge of protectiveness he had never known. The courtiers murmured among themselves. Some stepped closer, curious about the bond between human and hybrid. Others stayed back, clearly uncertain. Whispers spread. "A human father? Impossible! What does this mean for the Empire?" Sareth's voice broke through the murmurs. "You must understand, Captain Voss, this is not just about one child. Lyra represents a future where our species can coexist. If you accept her as your own, you accept a role far greater than any envoy's duty." Elian swallowed hard. The weight of her words pressed on him. He had always been proud of his achievements, proud of his skill and courage, but nothing had prepared him for this. This was not a mission he could complete with weapons or words alone. This was about heart, about family, about building trust across stars. I will protect her, he said finally, his voice steady. I don't know what that means yet, but I will not let anything happen to her. Lyra's face lit up. She reached for him, her small hands glowing softly. I knew you would say that, she whispered. The Queen nodded. You must understand, Captain, that not all will accept this bond. Some in the court see hybrids as threats. Others fear that humans cannot be trusted. You will face challenges. Elian straightened. I am ready, he said. His gaze swept the room. I have faced danger before. I will face it again for her. A tall Zethurian official stepped forward, his glowing patterns shifting from blue to red. Captain Voss, he said, his voice low and sharp, you are naive if you think this will be simple. Hybrids are considered dangerous. Some factions may see your bond with Lyra as a challenge to the throne. Elian's jaw tightened. Then I will show them that trust and love are stronger than fear, he said firmly. I do not want to fight anyone, but I will not abandon a child who calls me father. Sareth's many arms moved gracefully as she nodded. Good, then you understand. This is bigger than diplomacy. This is about building a future that both our peoples can share. Lyra tugged gently on Elian's hand. Can we explore the palace? She asked. Her small voice was full of excitement, and her glowing patterns shimmered with joy. Elian smiled, bending down to meet her eyes. Of course, he said. Lead the way. As they walked through the grand halls, Lyra ran ahead, her small hands touching walls and surfaces that glowed softly at her touch. She showed him secret passages and hidden gardens, places even the court rarely visited. Each room was more beautiful than the last, with plants that glowed, water that shimmered with colors, and strange creatures that moved gracefully along the walls. Elian followed, marveling at the palace. But he could not stop thinking about the political tension simmering beneath the surface. He knew some factions in the court would see Lyra's existence as dangerous. He would need to prove that humanity could be trusted, not just to protect Lyra, but to help build peace between species. Suddenly, Lyra stopped and pointed to a door that shimmered faintly. This is where I sleep, she said. They said it is safe, but I always waited for you. Elian felt a lump in his throat. Waiting for me all this time? He asked softly. He knelt and took her small hand again. You have been very brave, Lyra. I promise I will never leave you alone. She smiled, her glow intensifying. I know, Dad, I know. At that moment, a distant alarm echoed through the palace. The soft hum of machinery changed to a louder, urgent tone. Courtiers' glowing patterns shifted, some turning red with alarm. Queen Sareth's eyes widened. Trouble, she said calmly but firmly. Some factions do not like what they see. They may test you or even try to take her. Elian's heart pounded. He tightened his grip on Lyra's hand. Then we face it together, he said. His voice was firm, full of determination. Whatever comes, we face it together. Lyra nodded, her small body glowing with confidence. She trusted him completely. And for the first time, Elian felt the true weight of being a father, not just to protect her, but to guide her, to show her courage, and to prove that humanity could rise to meet any challenge. The palace, with its glowing walls and silent gardens, seemed calm again. But Elian knew the whispers would continue. The court would watch, the factions would plot, and the challenges were only beginning. And yet, as he looked at Lyra, he felt hope. If a small child could trust a human across worlds, then perhaps peace was possible. Perhaps humans were not just visitors in this galaxy. They could be a force for good, a bridge between worlds, and a symbol of courage and love. For the first time since arriving, Elian smiled. He had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing for certain. He would not let Lyra down. The palace was quiet for a moment, but the tension lingered like a low hum. Captain Elian Voss held Lyra's small hand as they walked through the glowing corridors. Even the most beautiful rooms could not hide the truth. Some of the Zethurian courtiers were watching him closely, their glowing patterns flickering with doubt or suspicion. Elian understood. He was a human in a palace of beings who had never truly trusted humans. Now, with Lyra calling him Dad, their eyes would be even sharper. He had to prove himself not with force, but with intelligence, courage, and empathy. Lyra skipped ahead, her glow bright and playful. Come on, Dad. I'll show you something, she said, tugging him toward a room at the end of a long hall. The room was circular, walls of translucent crystal glowing softly. In the center stood a series of puzzles and challenges, mechanical devices, holographic displays, and floating energy spheres. Lyra clapped her hands excitedly. "This is where the court tests humans," she said. "They think only a strong or clever person can enter this part of the palace safely. I wanted to show you first." Elian looked around. The devices were complex, some clearly designed to test intelligence, coordination, and problem-solving. He nodded, smiling at Lyra. "Then let's try it together." The first device was a puzzle, a series of floating shapes that needed to be aligned in a specific order. Elian studied the patterns carefully. Humans had learned to see connections others missed. With a few adjustments and careful observation, the shapes clicked into place. Lyra cheered, glowing brighter. "Good job, Dad, you're clever," she said. The next challenge was more physical. Floating platforms hovered above a shallow pool of shimmering liquid. A human could jump from platform to platform, but the platforms moved unpredictably. Zithurians were naturally agile and could hover with slight levitation, but humans relied on precision and timing. Elian took a deep breath. "I've got this," he muttered. Using his strength, balance, and careful timing, he leapt from platform to platform. At one point, a platform tilted sharply and he almost lost his balance, but he adjusted midair, landing safely. Lyra clapped excitedly, her glow flickering with delight. "You can do anything, Dad," she said. Elian smiled. He realized something important. The court had created these challenges expecting humans to fail. They thought he would rely only on strength or fear, but humans had something Zithurians often underestimated: creativity. The final challenge was a holographic maze. Energy walls shifted constantly, and the goal was to reach the center without touching them. Many Zithurians tried and failed, frustrated by the changing walls. Elian paused, studying the pattern. Then he remembered a simple human principle. Sometimes the solution is to think differently. Instead of running through the maze, he observed the walls' rhythm, predicting their movement. Step by step, he moved with patience and precision. Lyra followed closely, holding his hand and glowing softly with every correct step. When they reached the center, a soft chime echoed through the room. The walls of the palace seemed to shimmer in approval. Lyra jumped up and hugged Elian tightly. "You did it." "You're amazing, Dad." Elian laughed softly, brushing her hair away from her glowing face. "We did it together," he said. But outside the room, some courtiers were not cheering. A few influential figures frowned, their glowing patterns darkening. They whispered among themselves. "A human passed the trials. How can he have such skill and patience? This child, this hybrid, may change everything," Queen Sareth observed quietly. She knew the trials were designed not just to test humans, but to see if they could understand Zithurian ways while still being themselves. Elian had succeeded. Not only had he passed, but he had done so with empathy, guiding Lyra and showing respect to the court's expectations. Later, in a quieter hall, Elian and Lyra sat on a glowing bench near a window that looked out over the palace gardens. Lyra pointed to the sky. "Look, the stars are so bright here. Sometimes I think they are watching us." Elian nodded. "Maybe they are," he said. "And maybe they are hoping we do the right thing." Lyra smiled, leaning against him. "You're my dad," she whispered, "even if everyone else doesn't understand yet." Elian felt a warmth in his chest. "And I will always be your dad," he said, "no matter what." Suddenly, a commotion echoed down the hall. Guards rushed past, their glowing patterns flashing red with alarm. Lyra jumped to her feet. "What's happening?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Elian stood quickly, scanning the area. He saw a group of courtiers whispering urgently, some pointing toward the main audience chamber. "It seems the court is divided," he said. "Some of them do not like what they saw in the trials. They may see Lyra and me as a threat." Queen Sareth floated into the hall, her many arms folded calmly. "You have done well, Captain," she said. "But now you must prepare for challenges beyond these trials. There are those who believe the hybrid program is dangerous. They will test your courage, your wisdom, and your loyalty." Elian nodded. "I understand," he said firmly. "I will face them all. Lyra is with me and we will not back down." Sareth's glowing eyes softened. "Good, remember, Captain, strength alone is not enough. You must show patience, creativity, and heart. That is what humans can bring to our empire, a different kind of power." Elian looked at Lyra, who was glowing brightly, her small hands clutching his. He realized she was right. Humans had abilities Zithurians could not always measure: empathy, imagination, courage, and the ability to unite different peoples. As night fell over the palace, the corridors filled with soft luminescence from glowing plants and walls. Elian sat with Lyra near the central garden, watching her giggle as tiny glowing creatures floated around her. Even in this strange, alien palace, there was beauty, peace, and hope. But Elian knew the challenges were far from over. The court would continue to watch, judge, and test him. Some would try to undermine him. Some might even try to harm Lyra to prove their point. He tightened his grip on her small hand. "No matter what comes, we face it together," he whispered. Lyra smiled and nodded. In that moment, Elian realized that being human was more than just surviving or fighting. It was about seeing solutions where others saw problems, finding courage when fear appeared, and showing kindness even when others doubted you. He looked out over the glowing palace gardens and made a silent promise. Humanity would rise to meet this challenge, not with violence but with heart. And Lyra, the small, glowing child calling him Dad, was the reason he would succeed. The palace, filled with light, color, and alien whispers, seemed to hold its breath. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new trials, and perhaps new enemies. But tonight, a human and a hybrid child had already begun to change the hearts of the Zethurian court. And that was only the beginning. The night in the palace was quiet at first, but the calm did not last. Captain Elian Voss sat in the central garden with Lyra, enjoying a moment of peace. The glowing plants cast soft light around them, and tiny luminescent creatures floated gently through the air. Lyra laughed softly as she tried to catch them with her small hands. Elian smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. For a moment, it felt like nothing could go wrong. But he knew better. The palace was filled with Zethurians of many different opinions, and not all of them would accept Lyra. Some factions feared hybrids. Some thought humans could never be trusted. A sudden alarm shattered the calm. Red lights flashed through the palace halls. The soft hum of the crystal walls turned into an urgent, piercing sound. Lyra's small body stiffened. "What's happening?" she whispered, clutching his hand. Elian's face grew serious. "We are about to find out. Stay close to me." They ran toward the main hall, the corridors glowing faintly under their feet. Guards rushed past, some moving toward the alarms, others shielding courtiers. Elian noticed patterns in the chaos. Certain Zethurians were moving with purpose, others with fear. He realized quickly this was not just an accident. It was an attack. In the central audience chamber, a group of masked figures had appeared. Their glowing patterns were muted, hiding their identities. They were members of an extremist faction loyal to old traditions who believed the hybrid program was a threat to the Empire. Their weapons glowed faintly, capable of firing energy bolts. Elian crouched instinctively in front of Lyra. "Stay behind me," he said firmly. He scanned the room for anything he could use to protect them. The extremists moved forward. "The hybrid must be removed," one of them hissed. "No human should raise a child of the Zethurian Empire," Elian's mind raced. He could not rely on strength alone. He was human and they were trained for combat. But humans had other skills, creativity, quick thinking, improvisation. He spotted a row of floating crystal panels above the chamber. With careful timing, he tapped a small control device he had noticed earlier. The panels shifted, reflecting light and energy beams in ways that created barriers between them and the extremists. Lyra's eyes widened. "Wow. You're amazing, Dad," she whispered, holding his hand tightly. Elian smiled briefly. "We need to move. Stay close." He led her through a hidden passage Lyra had shown him earlier. The walls glowed softly under her touch, revealing secret paths known only to a few Zethurians. They passed guards and courtiers, some confused, some hiding. As they turned a corner, a group of extremists appeared. Elian froze for a split second, then remembered the human skill of improvisation. He grabbed a nearby glowing crystal and threw it toward a wall. The crystal shattered, releasing a blinding light. The extremists recoiled, giving him and Lyra just enough time to escape into another corridor. Lyra giggled softly. "That was like magic," she whispered. Elian chuckled, but his mind was still focused. "We're not done yet," he said. "We need to reach the Queen and protect her too." They moved quickly, using every secret passage Lyra knew. Elian noticed the extremists were trying to split them up, using the palace's size to their advantage. But he stayed calm, predicting their moves and staying one step ahead. Humans had a way of thinking outside the box, and he used it now to keep Lyra safe. Finally, they reached a grand hall where Queen Sareth hovered, her many limbs glowing with power. She was surrounded by a few loyal guards, but even they were outnumbered. "Elian, Lyra," she said, her voice urgent. "You've made it. Now we must end this before more harm comes to the palace." Elian nodded. "We can do this, Your Majesty." "We need a distraction, then we strike together." He motioned to Lyra. "Ready?" She nodded, her small body glowing brightly. "Ready, Dad." Elian had noticed the palace energy conduits, glowing lines running along the walls. He instructed Lyra to touch one panel carefully. When she did, a surge of soft energy spread through the conduits, activating security systems. Doors closed, trapping some extremists, while energy shields activated, protecting the Queen and loyal guards. The extremists hissed and tried to adapt, but Elian and the Queen coordinated with the palace defenses. Using both human tactics and Zethurian psychic guidance, they moved as one. Energy barriers, shifting lights, and precise timing allowed them to neutralize the attackers without anyone being seriously harmed. After the last extremist was contained, the hall was silent again. The Queen looked at Elian and Lyra, her glowing eyes full of respect. "You have done more than survive," she said softly. "You have shown the true power of humanity, not just strength, but courage, intelligence, and compassion." Elian knelt, holding Lyra close. "We did it together," he said. Lyra hugged him tightly. "I knew we could, Dad." Outside the hall, the palace began to settle. Guards checked the corridors, making sure no one else was hiding. Courtiers whispered among themselves, their glowing patterns flickering with awe and admiration. Even some of the skeptics could not hide their respect for the human who had protected the hybrid child and the Queen. Elian knew the extremists would not give up completely. There would be challenges ahead, perhaps even attempts to strike again. But for now, the palace was safe. Lyra was safe, and he had proven that humans could protect, think, and lead in ways that Zethurians had not fully expected. He looked at Lyra, who was glowing brightly, her small hands holding his. "Are you scared?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "Not with you, Dad." "You make everything safe." Elian smiled, a warm feeling spreading through him. "Then we'll stay together. We'll face whatever comes together." The Queen hovered closer, her many limbs folding gracefully. "Captain Voss," she said, "you have not only protected the child, but also our empire. You have shown courage and ingenuity. Tomorrow you will meet the council. They will judge you, yes, but today you have already earned respect." Elian nodded. He knew the council might still be wary, but he had made an impression. And with Lyra by his side, he felt ready for anything. As night fell, the palace glowed softly, its walls reflecting the bravery and courage of the night's events. Elian sat with Lyra in the central garden, watching tiny luminescent creatures float around them. He whispered softly, "No matter what comes next, we will face it together." Lyra leaned against him, her glow soft and steady. "Together, Dad," she repeated, smiling. In that moment, Elian understood something deeply. Humanity was not just about fighting or surviving. It was about thinking, creating, protecting, and loving. With courage and intelligence, humans could rise to challenges that seemed impossible. And sometimes, even a small child could inspire an entire palace to see hope in a new way. The night was calm again, but Elian knew it would not stay that way forever. There would be more challenges, more tests, and perhaps more dangers. But tonight, they had survived. Tonight, they had won a victory of courage, cleverness, and heart. And most importantly, Lyra knew that no matter what, her human father would never leave her side. The palace was quiet in the early morning, but Captain Elian Voss knew it would not stay that way for long. After the attack the night before, tension still hung in the halls. Courtiers whispered in glowing corridors, some admiring, some skeptical, and some clearly plotting. Lyra clung to his hand, her small body glowing softly as if to remind him that hope could shine even in uncertainty. "Elian, we need to prepare for the council," Queen Sareth said, hovering beside them. Her glowing limbs moved gracefully, a calm presence in a palace still filled with unease. "They will judge you for what happened last night. Some may see your actions as reckless. Others may finally understand the value of humans." Elian nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. "I understand, Your Majesty, but I do not fear their judgment. I only want to show them what Lyra and I can accomplish together." Lyra looked up at him, her glowing eyes wide. "I'm not scared either, Dad. We can do this." Elian smiled and squeezed her hand. "Together we can face anything." The council chamber was vast, more magnificent than any room he had seen before. Crystal walls rose high, reflecting soft light, and platforms floated above the ground where the council members sat. They were Zethurians of every rank, glowing patterns shifting as they spoke and listened. The extremists from last night were gone, contained and watched closely, but their influence still lingered in the murmurs of some council members. Elian stepped forward with Lyra at his side. Every eye in the room was on them. He could feel the judgment, the curiosity, and even the doubt. But he focused on the small hand holding his, and a calm determination filled him. Queen Sareth introduced them. Council members Captain Elian Voss and the hybrid child Lyra. They have survived the tests, protected the palace, and demonstrated qualities of courage, wisdom, and empathy. It is time for you to see the future they represent. A tall council member's glowing patterns flickered with skepticism. Captain Voss, he said, humans have always been outsiders. Your species is unpredictable. Why should we trust that your bond with this hybrid child is not dangerous? Elian took a deep breath. Because trust is not built by fear, he said calmly. It is built by action. Last night when extremists attacked, Lyra and I worked together to protect the palace. We used intelligence, strategy, and cooperation, not just strength. We showed that humans can act with responsibility, courage, and care. And I will do the same for Lyra. I will protect her, teach her, and guide her. I will not fail her. The council murmured. Some nodded slowly, their glowing patterns softening. Others remained cautious. Lyra stepped forward, her small hands glowing brightly. I trust him, she said simply. He is my dad. He will not let anyone hurt me. He helps me. He listens to me. That is why he is my father. A hush fell over the chamber. The council had never heard a hybrid child speak with such confidence and clarity. The words were simple, yet they carried weight no human could deny. Another council member, older and more stern, rose. If this child truly represents both species, and if this human truly cares for her, then perhaps we have been wrong to fear them. Perhaps we have underestimated the power of family and trust. Elian felt a wave of relief. It was not total acceptance, but it was progress. He turned to Lyra, who smiled and squeezed his hand. Together, they radiated a sense of unity that even the most skeptical Zethurians could not ignore. Suddenly, alarms sounded softly, less urgent than the night before. A message appeared in the chamber. Distant extremists were attempting to disrupt trade negotiations in another part of the empire. The council members looked worried, some turning to Elian instinctively. I will handle this, Elian said calmly. With the Queen's guidance and Lyra's insight, we can resolve this peacefully and show that humans and hybrids can lead together. Queen Sareth nodded. Yes, and remember, Captain, humanity's strength is not just in force. It is in creativity, diplomacy, and empathy. Lead with those, and you cannot fail. Elian took a deep breath and moved to a holographic map of the Empire. He showed the Council a plan, coordinated forces using human ingenuity and Zethurian technology, strategic use of communication channels, and careful negotiation with those extremists. His ideas were clear, simple, and actionable. Lyra added her insight. She knew the palace and its systems intimately, and she suggested secret routes and communication signals. Her small ideas complemented Elian's strategies perfectly, proving that even a child could be a key part of leadership. The council members watched in awe. Slowly, skepticism turned into admiration. They could not deny the results, humans and hybrids working together, creating solutions that no one group could achieve alone. Hours later, the situation was resolved peacefully. Extremists were contained without bloodshed, trade negotiations continued smoothly, and the palace remained safe. The council looked at Elian and Lyra with newfound respect. Queen Sareth addressed the chamber. Captain Voss, Lyra, you have demonstrated that courage, intelligence, and empathy can unite even the most divided. This child is the bridge between our species. Humans are no longer outsiders, they are allies, and perhaps they are the partners we need for a stronger future. The council members stood, applauding softly. Lyra clapped her small hands, glowing brighter than ever. She ran to Elian and hugged him tightly. We did it, Dad, she whispered. Elian held her close, feeling a mix of pride, relief, and joy. Yes, Lyra, we did it together. In the following days, the palace transformed. Humans were welcomed openly for the first time. Lyra became a symbol of hope, showing both species that cooperation, understanding, and love could create a stronger empire. Elian continued to serve as her protector, teacher, and father. He walked through the palace with Lyra, hand in hand, observing the once doubtful courtiers now smiling and glowing warmly. They approached new challenges with a shared sense of purpose, inspired by a child's courage and a human's ingenuity. One evening, Elian and Lyra sat in the palace gardens, watching glowing flowers and tiny creatures float in the air. Lyra leaned against him, her glow soft and steady. "Do you think humans can really help Zethurians?" she asked softly. Elian smiled. "I know we can," he said. "Not because we are stronger, but because we care. We think, we imagine, and we never give up. That is humanity's true power, and with you, Lyra, we can do anything." She smiled and hugged him again. "I'm glad you're my dad." Elian kissed the top of her glowing head. "And I'm glad you're my daughter. Together we will help both our worlds." As the palace glimmered under the night sky, Elian realized that the galaxy had changed. A small child calling a human dad had proven more powerful than fear, suspicion, or prejudice. And humanity, through courage, empathy, and ingenuity, had shown that it could rise to meet any challenge, bridging worlds that had long been divided. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was also full of hope. And that hope was glowing brightly, just like Lyra's small, shining hands. The Empire would remember this day, and humanity's story in the Zethurian palace had only just begun.